Okay, so here's some production on my exhaust flange. Good nice thick flange. And I had a friend loan me this high-speed steel bit. It's not really a drill bit, it's more of a cutter. It's hollow on the bottom. You see that? Hollow. And fit into this large drill press. It's got a 5/8 shank on it. It's a beast. Use some good old rapid tap cutting fluid on it. And my God, that's the only way to go. Make Swiss cheese of this heavy steel. It's friggin' awesome. And what I did was I just placed my gasket, MLS gasket over top of this, through the holes there, one hole on each end kind of thing to align it. And now perfectly aligned the cutter to the gasket opening, so it's gasket matched 100%. Okay, I think this is probably the easiest way to lay out this pipe and keep everything nice and tight. All of these pipes here will be in the same plane when we're done. They should be nice and flat. So I can lay them out on a flat surface, and these 90s make it easy because I just, rotate the 90 till it stops, and now you're flat. Well, I can line them up with these holes here perfectly. I'll put a hole there perfectly, wherever I get to. And then measure the distance in the middle. I can measure the distance in the middle here. I'll make the pipe and tack it in, and then make sure when I come back it all lays flat, and it should. Next thing, I'll add my 1-inch pieces here, 1-inch piece here, and it's going to have the 15-degree angle in it. After that, I can measure out my middle pieces. And we'll see how that goes, but I think it's going to be the best way to keep everything straight is just to use a flat surface. And of course, use that as well, this straight edge here, as a guide for everything as well. To line this, what I did was I just took a square and I marked lines there. And just so happens when you lay it on a flat surface, you can use this spot here and this spot here to line up against the line pretty closely and make sure, right. There? I don't know. Make sure you're totally equidistant. Same thing down here, of course. Looks pretty good to me. And then all we're going to do is measure this gap. Pretty good. This ended up being about 18.1 millimeters long. I like to use millimeters just because, it's easier. When you're measuring stuff. Anyway, there's that. I'll chamfer these guys, tack weld them together, and then after that, I'll throw the 1-inch pieces on here. Okay, I tack welded it and I welded it out. I gotta say I love it. It worked fantastic. If I flip it up, oh man, it's hot. Hot? Yep, hot. Damn. Flip it up onto here, like this. It's super flat. Got a little lift on one edge there. The other side's really good. Considering the amount of weld I put on that, that's not bad. Not bad at all. Actually, it's not even that. It's not even. You gotta look right in there because it's chamfered. So, frick yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it any day. Okay, so I'm already forgetting lessons I learned on the last set of manifolds. Almost forgot these little pieces. As you can see, the head, the 317 head, it points down a little bit. And I don't want my manifolds to point down. I want them to be level and both ways, left and right and front to back. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put in about as you can see, that's 15 degrees. I'm going to put it in one inch piece before we hit the 90s to go left and right. That'll bring the manifolds back to level essentially, instead of having them tilt down. I want them just to run level, and that helps with the placement on the spark plugs, helps with the placement getting out of the engine, helps everything. And it's interesting, if you look at the old SBC, this is a 305, here's the old manifold, and it seems like they have a bit of an angle cut in them as well to accommodate the heads. So I guess I'm going back to stock here. Anyway, you got to cut those pieces. Good thing I tack welded the 90s. I'll undo the tacks and add that 1-inch piece in at 15 degrees. So because I got an angle in this thing now, here's my little 1-inch piece. It's really important that I get the directions right. So when it's on the machine, I want the angle to be against the manifold like that. So the short here is going to be the top, and then the 90-degree piece, just let me close that up a little bit. Here, so short at the top, and then the 90-degree piece, one of them will exit like this, and on the other end it'll exit like that. So I got to do one each way. I use this product on the inside called Solar Flux B. What you do is, it's a powder. You mix it up with some isopropyl alcohol, and you just paste it on the inside here. Just a nice light coat. I go with like a medium coat, and it dries pretty quickly to a gray powdery finish. That prevents precipitation of cadmium, not cadmium, I don't know, whatever chromium, the good stuff that's in the stainless steel that makes the stainless. You want to keep that stuff inside the stainless. Otherwise you're screwed. So anyway, it does a great job of that, and we'll see how it turns out. So now that I got these guys here, I can point them so that the small side is to the top. Go over. Where's my mark? Here's my mark. Should have made a mark on the bottom side. That's towards the top. I can fit the big pipe on and make any adjustments necessary before I talk to me. So acetone them and the solar flux in there, give them a tack, and then go for it. Should be pretty good. That went pretty well. See, they're still sitting nice and flush, so I haven't bent it up too much with my heat inputs. Nice thick pipe. That's one of the nice things about it too. Next step is to figure out where these center portions will be. So I'm going to cut a couple of pipes with a fish mouth, and basically lay it over like that, and measure them down. So put a straight edge against those, and then I can see how far down I need to come with my middle pipes. We'll see how that works. Okay, here's the website I use. It's metalgeek.com. Click on this guy, and yeah, basically you can specify the two different pipe diameters, the outer diameters, wall thickness, and you download a pattern in PDF. Now, after you download the pattern, you cut it out and you lay it on the pipe and tape it on. The only tricky thing is that when you print it out in PDF, print it out and select actual size. If there's any type of scaling, of course it won't work. So print actual size, and the thing does a great job. It's like we got a tiny little touch up to do here or there. That's about it. That's awesome. Here's what I'm talking about. I'm about to print this out in Adobe. I'll just move this down. Okay, I'll get rid of it for a second. So here's my parameters for the Schedule 42-inch. They measured out pretty well what was on the website. I'm going to select print, and then down here select actual size. I'm going to do 2 copies, just because that way I got a backup and I got a bunch of tubes to cut. I got 4 of them to cut, 2 for this header and 2 for the next header. So I'll do that, and that'll be the deal. So this is what you get as an output from the Metal Geek calculator. Quite simply, you lay it on there, wrap it around, and tape it on, and then you just take a Sharpie or something and mark the curve on the end of the pipe. You can see it's kind of a sine wave pattern, like it should be here. Anyway, why does that happen? Yeah, so what I do is I'll cut out the major spots. Like, I'll just make a triangle down to there and down to there with a cutting disc, and then I'll ferre the rest out with a grinding disc, and see how it Okay, so here's one of them done. Well, close to done anyway. You see I followed my line pretty well. Got this old, I was going to make a higher flow pipe, but these cross pieces ended up being a big pain in the ass, so I got rid of them. But this is the same size piece, same diameter pipe, Schedule 40. And as you can see, fits pretty good. There's a little bit on the outside there. See that? A little bit on that. Actually, when I get in there more properly, it's a lot tighter. So I could use a little bit deeper U right here to help it fit in at the top. Like I said, there's a little touch-up required, so yeah, I'll make the U's a little deeper here, and should fit right in. But not half bad. Okay, there's the second one done. Looking pretty good. It's got a little bit of a gap there, which I'm not super crazy about, but I'll live with that. I'll weld it up. And first I gotta cut a bunch of holes now. So hole in this pipe, and then I'm gonna try and figure out where to cut the hole on the top here as well. And then bam, bam, bam. Okay. Time to weld. So what I'm doing to line these guys up before I weld them is I'm trying to bring all of these angled pieces to the edge here, and then additionally I marked the approximate peak, and I don't know if you can see it, but I've marked the center line of the holes. So I'm trying to put the peak kind of to the center lines. They don't have to be perfect, thank God, because this one's not. That one's like pretty well right on, and this one needs to be pulled up a bit, and then it's good. So I'll tack weld all the pieces together in this situation. They're pretty decently flat, so they should weld onto the flange real nice. Yeah, that's it for this step. Alright, so there it is mounted up on the head. So you can see it came out pretty flat, so I like that. Now we'll figure out where the pipe is going to go up. Okay, you can see it's a fairly straightforward process. Figure out where it's going to go, in the middle obviously, and then just align it so it's straight up. Perfection not required, but you know, better is better. So my next step is to create the inner flange for the casing, or the jacket. And this is an 18-inch by about 3.5-inch piece. As you can see, there's an angle in it, but when it's done, it's going to slide on straight. There's no reason to have an angle in this shield. I'll make it straight up and down. And so what I want to do is, just in case I didn't get my pipes perfect, which, you know, they're not perfect. You can see there's a little deviation here to here to here to here. I'm going to mark that, mark the tops of them, and then measure it. And that way I can measure down and should be able to get the markings on the pipe perfect. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a brown piece of pipe like this. Once I mark the tops where I want them to be, I'll just put that guy on and scribe the circle. And hopefully these guys will slide right through without too much alteration. The bigger and shittier I make the holes, pardon me, the worse I make the holes, the harder time I'm going to have welding it on. So we'll try and make it the best holes possible. I just placed it on there, and on this side I measured up 1/2 inch on one end, 1/2 inch on the other end, right here, and then I just drew marks where they started. And now we'll draw them in. We'll remove this. Take this guy here, add her on there, just like so. And after I did that, I decided, you know, there could be a little bit of a skew in these pipes just by rotation. So I drew all 4 sides. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That sort of thing, to try and get this circle as close as possible when I lay the pipe up there. It won't fit, but it'll help me sort of, you know, like that, get equidistant to both sides, that kind of thing, and hopefully get me as accurate as possible. What the finished product looks like. I won't actually know how good these are until I actually cut them out, but you know, next step is to take them and hole saw them out, and they'll need to go a little bigger than my hole saw, I think, but we'll see how that goes. Okay, so I got these flanges welded on. I welded them on the inside and the outside, just to guarantee they're waterproof. Probably too much weld material, but then I did warp it somewhat. It's so friggin' hard to get into some of these little spots, like down in there. Welding thick to thin, all of the hard stuff all together, and also my metal work was so bad. I had big gaps, so I had to fill the gaps and then, you know, weld it to the pipe. It's it wasn't easy because I suck at metalwork. Did I mention that? Anyway, so here's my next couple pieces. This is a 5-inch piece, and it's I don't know, 18 inches long, whatever. Again, And simply because this isn't perfect, what I'm going to do is just lay it over until I cover it all. Make sure I'm covered on the back end here, which I am. And then tack it on. And everything else from here on is going to be custom. And basically I'm just going to build a box around it. And then on the other side, I'll do the bottom piece and the side piece. And then I'll have to figure out for the top piece here, I'll have to figure out where the pipe's going to come out and cut a hole. And that'll be, I'm sure, pretty tricky. So, but anyways, that's the next couple steps, the bottom piece and the side piece. Yeah. Okay, here's my weld on the inside there. I figured it'd be easier to weld this inside first and then stick it on after. So I'm doing 2 of these, one for each side. And I just thought I'd show, just one second. Just thought I'd show what you get on the solar flux on the other side. So here's the solar flux. You see I get full penetration there, not quite up here, a little more penetration there. There were a couple holes in this, so anyway, it's pretty good. Like, it's kind of they could describe it as a black glassy substance, and you can see that it is. There's the solar flux powder, and you can see it just wipes off with a finger. But when it gets hot, it turns into this glassy kind of substance. It's pretty neat. Just a bit of a side note here. I actually welded this without warping the shit out of it. I mean, the heck out of it. Anyway, I did it fairly hot and went fairly fast. That's supposed to be the key to stainless, and in this particular case, it worked. I was able to do that though because I had really good fit up along the seam, and honestly, it was kind of an easy weld to do. So those 2 things make it easy, and being able to go fast and dip a lot, that seemed to keep her fairly flat. Okay, so here's the piece I welded up right here. Seems to look pretty good, I think. It's got a little more than a ½ inch at the back there, and I just chopped it up with a set of pliers. But that's how it's gonna sort of be. Top coming out here, and it'll be all boxed up. Should look pretty good. Okay, here we go. Got this L piece welded on. I cut a little access hole so I can weld up this pipe real nice. I think it was worthwhile doing it that way rather than welding it on first, because with this welded on, I could locate this top plate and locate the hole for the pipe come out really nicely. And I might have left myself maybe not quite enough room here. It'll be fine though. I mean, it'll be tight, but it'll still flow because all the water that's in this area has to flow up by the pipe. Obviously, I can cut it bigger over here, but I want to surround it, so I want to make sure it's all good. Anyway, it's gonna work out fine. My other one here, a little bit better. Got a little bit more space in behind the pipe. It'll work out even better. Anyway, do this pipe, and I'll cut the top and check out the pipe. The hole for the pipe on this guy as well. And weld it all. Okay, before I get too carried away, this is my test setup. Before I enclose this, I'm going to make it, check all the welds. Basically, just put caps on the ends of these guys, and put an air spigot on the input here. And I'm going to pump it up to 10 psi or so, throw it in a jug of water, which is going to be a bathtub in my case, and just see if she's bubbling. Okay, so there she is underwater. No bubbles at all. It's been here for 20 minutes or so. Fair amount of pressure, 5-10 psi. Not a crazy amount, but enough to find out if it's got any holes, and it doesn't, so that's pretty good. Okay, so here's the fit up on one of my envelopes here, the top of it. So you can see that's what's underneath there, and it looks pretty good. You see there's adequate clearance all the way around the pipe. There might be a little bit to take out here, but not too much. Yeah, it looks good. So this is where the water will escape. Here's the piece of tubing I've got. Again, it's 3/16. The tubing slides over, making a water passage. This is obviously too tall, but that's the idea, pipe inside the pipe, of course. And yeah, the water will pump in maybe on this corner on the front end, and fill this chamber, and then up the exhaust it goes. So yeah, should work pretty good. I've got them to the point where I cut an angle in this to make them look cooler. And smaller. Smaller is always good, so you can reach around your engine easier. And I left an inch on this side, and I don't know, kind of 2 inches in on the back side, I think. The other thing I'm going to do before I weld the caps on is I put a hole in here, and I got a little bit of stainless tubing, and so that's going to be my input for the water. And it's pretty good, nice and tight. And then on the opposite corner, on the bottom side, this is going to be for my drain. It's just a half 13, most common thread known to man kind of thing. And I just cut a hole in it. I'm going to weld a stainless steel 316 nut on the outside. And that'll be my drain. I'll put an O-ring on this surface here, and the head will come up and touch it. The other thing I did on the last one was I drilled it out and put a anode in here just to protect it even further. And you can see the anode come up quite a ways without making contact with the steel, so that's good. One thing I should mention, if you don't have one of these, get one. This is a Diablo, but there's lots of people that make them. It's a step drill, or a step bit, uni bit, whatever you want to call it. If you're cutting stainless steel or any other type of sheet metal, and quarter inch, what are these, 16ths maybe? Whatever they are, if that's good enough precision for you, this is the only way to go, man. It just shreds this metal like crazy, and it's not that easy to shred it, so yeah, I can't say enough about okay, so here's one. Got the angles cut, starting to look pretty good. Here's the input device, and there's the half 13 nut welded on. So yeah, starting to look pretty good. Weld the other one up and carry on.